Hello everyone, I am Shivputra Pancha, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, BADS VP Dr. PG Halkatti College of Engineering and Technology, Vijaypur. In today's session, I am going to discuss about classes and functions, so which is taken from module 4. So in this, initially we are going to discuss something about time. So what actually time represents? So one example, class time represents the time of the day, so which actually includes hour, minute, and second. So how we can describe these time factors? So we can create a new time object and assign attributes for hours, minutes, and seconds. So how we can create object in Python and all, we have already discussed in objects and methods. So now with the same concept, so we are going to discuss something about classes and functions. So now in the first statement, so we are going to create one object using time equal to time. So time here is a constructor, this one, and with reference to that time object, so we are going to create the attributes of it. So that is hour, minute, and second. Time dot hour equal to 11, time dot minute equal to 59, time dot second equal to 30. So this is what how time is described. So as an exercise, there is an example. We are supposed to write a function called print underscore time that takes a time object and prints it in the form of hour, minute, second. So I will give you one hint. So hint, the format sequence percentage point 2d prints an integer using at least 2 digits, including a leading zero if necessary. So based on previous slide explanation, so you can write this program very easily. Write a boolean function. One more example, write a boolean function called is underscore after that takes two time objects t1 and t2 and returns true if t1 follows t2 chronologically and false otherwise. Very simple conditions. So what you have to do is you have to create objects of time as t1 and t2, then you have to call the time objects in the chronological fashion. So if the condition is satisfied, then it returns true, otherwise it returns false. In this, so in next we are going to discuss something about pure functions. So initially we will define one function called as add underscore time, which takes two objects, that is t1 and t2. Def add underscore time t1 and t2, t1 comma t2, sum equal to time. So we'll create one more object of type sum. Then using that sum, we are going to add those two objects called as t1 and t2. T1 represents hour, t1 and t2 represents hours of different objects. Sum dot hour equal to t1 dot hour plus t2 dot hour. Sum dot minute equal to t1 dot minute plus t2 dot minute. And similarly, sum dot second equal to t1 dot second plus t2 dot second. And finally, we are going to return sum. And the same function can be called in another main function. So this is called a pure function because it does not modify any of the objects passed to it as arguments, and it has no effect like displaying a value or getting user input other than returning a value. So here why this function is called as pure function. So that pure function takes two arguments, and those two arguments are objects, and those objects are not modifying at all. Simply it is using the values of those objects, and it will be assigning to the other time object. So that's what it is called as pure function. So how actually these things can be written? So there are simple instructions here. Just you can see, add underscore time figures out when the movie will be done. So have a look at these statements here. Start equal to time. So next what we have to do is we have to assign the values for hour, minute, and second. That is start dot hour, start dot minute, start dot second. And similarly we will create one more object called as duration, which is also of same time class. Duration dot hour, then minute, second. So here we have two different objects called as start and duration. And finally what we have to do is we have to create one more one variable called as done, which is equal to, which is assigned to, so we are calling the add underscore time function here with those two objects, that is start and duration. Then after that, if we print time, so then what we have to do is we have to print underscore time. Already that print underscore time function is written, which is used for printing the time constants. So once you print that, that entire duration of that movie will be printed in the form of hour, minutes and seconds. The same previous program, so how we can modify it? Modify to carry the extra seconds into the minute column or the extra minutes into the hour column. So how we do that? So the same function we will write it as we have written earlier. Def add underscore time t1 comma t2 sum equal to time object is created sum dot hour, and to that both the objects are assigned t1 dot hour plus t2 dot hour sum dot minute equal to t1 dot minute plus t2 dot minute sum dot second equal to t1 dot second plus t2 dot second. So we will be putting some small conditions for conversion. If sum dot second is greater or equal to 60, then sum dot second equal to sum dot second minus 60, then sum dot minute equal to sum dot minute plus 1. In that case we have to increment 1 minute. And if sum dot minute is greater or equal to 60, then in that case we have to decrement minute by 60. We have to subtract minute by 60 and we have to increment hour by 1, and finally we have to return sum. This is what modify to carry the extra seconds into the minute column or the extra minutes into the hour column. So this is nothing but a conversion. So next we are going to discuss something about modifiers. So for that, once again we will be defining one function. So here in this session the main concept to what we are talking about is how we use classes and functions. So here in this example, once again one more function is defined called as increment, which takes two objects, which takes two variables, time and seconds. Both are also those are also in the form of objects only. So time dot second equal to time dot seconds plus seconds. If time dot second is greater or equal to 60, then again in the same thing. So what we are doing here is we are modifying the object itself, but we are not modifying the arguments which are passed to the increment function. Similarly here what we would have to do is we have to modify both second as well as minute based on the conditions. As an exercise, write a pure version of increment that creates and returns a new time object rather than modifying a parameter. Prototyping. So next is prototyping versus planning. So what is actually a prototype? Prototype and patch. For each function, a prototype is written that performed the basic calculation and then tested it, patching errors along the way. Parallelly, we have to do both. First we have to write prototype, then we have to debug the errors. The next step is designed development, in which high level insight into the problem can make the programming much easier. So there is one more exercise, convert time objects to integers. Already we have in the previous slides we have discussed, we have considered the time objects. So now how we are supposed to convert time objects into integers and take advantage of the fact that the computer knows how to do integer arithmetic. So what you have to do is time to int. We have to write one more function called as time to int, and we'll pass the time object. So how we have to convert that into an integer is minutes equal to time dot hour into 60 plus time dot minute. As usual, we have to take two more variables here, that is minutes and seconds. So for that we have to assign that entire calculation, that is hour and minute into minutes, minutes and second into seconds, and finally we have to return seconds, and that seconds is in the form of integer. So here totally the time objects are converted into integer. So vice versa can also be done. So integer to time. So how we do that? In this case, the argument passed to this function is seconds. So once again, what we have to do is we have to create an object called as time, minutes equal minutes comma time dot second equal to. There is one method we have to use, dev mod. So which divides that seconds by 60. So that is dev mode is a function which takes two parameters, seconds comma 60. Similarly, time dot hour comma time dot minute equal to dev mode of minutes comma 60. And after that we have to return time, and that time object is nothing but which takes the time constants as hour, minute and seconds. So this is how we can do the conversion from time object to integer and integer object to time. Write a function called multiplication underscore time that takes a time object and number and returns a new time object that contains the product of the original time and the number. And this example is very much similar to the previous examples discussed. So this you can solve it, and you can submit this as an assignment. So thank you for listening.